Hey everybody, it is me, Vincent. Welcome to another Vincent Vision. I'm coming to you from home today, and I wanted to talk about Epic Universe. Specifically, something that's kind of been happening these past couple weeks, and I want to kind of try to help navigate in the right direction. You see, at the time of recording this video, Universal has been having previews for Epic Universe, specifically team member previews. So employees are getting to experience the park for the first time, and they are getting to talk about it on social media, build a lot of buzz and excitement, and I think all of that is great. Epic Universe is a park that all of us have been incredibly excited for. It's so great to see all of this hype and excitement get built up for the brand new park, all of this positive attention at Universal. But sometimes with hype, there kind of gets a limit where you kind of want to keep it at this level right here, but when hype starts to go off the rails, it starts to go too high, and people expect too much from the park, and I think that's kind of something that's happening right now. I've seen a lot of really big statements made. Statements like certain rides in the park, certain shows in the park being called some of the best theme park experiences ever. Certain areas of Epic Universe being compared to Tokyo DisneySea, with really kind of right out of the gate treating Epic Universe like the Holy Land. I am incredibly excited for Epic Universe. I know it's going to be super successful, but here's kind of how I see this sort of timeline going. All of this pre-opening hype is coming out, and you are going to see all this and hear about how Epic Universe is like this 10 out of 10, 15 out of 10 park. And then the media previews are going to happen, and all these invited people are going to show up, and they're going to tell you that this park is the most amazing place ever. And you're going to go to Epic Universe when it's officially open with everybody. You are going to have an 8 out of 10, a 9 out of 10, even a 10 out of 10 experience at the brand new park. But you're going to still be a little disappointed because you weren't getting this 20 out of 10 experience that everyone else has been talking about. And I think that really like the best way and the most important way to look at Epic Universe is to understand that this park that's going to open in May, this is year 1 out of 50. This park is just the beginning. This park is just a baby. And I think that all of this hype that is coming from these reviews of previews and all of these future reviews we're going to get are kind of setting the park up in a bad way. So with this video, I kind of wanted to compare the soon-to-be opening of Epic Universe with the opening of a lot of existing, well-established parks that we know and love. Things like Disneyland, Universal Studios Florida, even Tokyo DisneySea. These are all parks that, when they opened, kind of had a little bit of a rough patch and maybe didn't have enough things to do. I mean, when we talk about park openings, we got to talk about the biggest and the most important theme park in America, honestly, Disneyland. And as much as people love Disneyland now, this park had a bit of a rough opening. Disneyland's opening day in the Disney history community is known as Black Sunday. The grand opening day of Disneyland was actually meant to originally be an invite-only event. They only gave out a certain amount of tickets at the time so people could experience the brand new park. And mind you, this was the same day that Walt Disney had that very famous, iconic speech, "To all who come to this happy place, welcome." They opened their gates to Disneyland, and a lot happened. I'm sure you've heard the stories. They expected about 15,000 people to be visiting Disneyland, and I think the way I understand it is that people had tickets for time slots. So it said, hey, you're here at Disneyland from 9 a.m. to 2:30, leave at 2:30 so another group of people could come in. Obviously that didn't work because all the people who had the morning tickets just stayed in the park. So the park was super busy, super slammed. People were also using counterfeit tickets to get into Disneyland when it first opened up. When Walt Disney and the crew originally expected 15,000 people to be at Disneyland, it ended up being somewhere closer to like 28,000 people, almost double the amount of guests at this brand new park. There were stories about people literally like climbing fences to jump into the park and sneak in, and people would bring ladders and charge people $5 to jump over the fence to go to Disneyland, which is crazy. And of course, just like a lot of theme parks, the grand opening day of Disneyland came down to the wire. They were still working on the park leading up to its opening day, so much so that there are tall tales and fables of the cement not being ready in the park. On opening day, it was apparently 100 degrees in Anaheim, so the cement was literally melting. It wasn't even ready yet. Like, ladies' high heels were getting stuck in the pavement. Apparently, like, Disney wasn't cooperating with the plumbers union, so they had a strike. They weren't working on the park, and then Walt Disney had to make a decision on either keeping the toilets running or the water fountains running. And he chose the toilets because using the bathroom is much more important than drinking water, though it was 100 degrees in California on that day. So water would have also been very important. I think it is extremely unlikely that Epic Universe will have an experience like this where people are jumping over the fences to sneak into the park. That kind of stuff just doesn't happen anymore. But this is a really fun story to talk about because when you think of Disneyland, it's still regarded as one of the best theme parks. It's definitely one of the most visited. I love Disneyland. You would think someone from 1955 visiting Disneyland at the time of its opening would probably not think too highly of this place because of this really rough experience. Now you look at Disneyland 70 years later, and it is one of the best theme parks anywhere. Another park right across the way from Disneyland is Disney's California Adventure. And this park kind of had a bit of an interesting opening as well. Before California Adventure was built, the last Disney park made was Disneyland Paris. When it first opened up, it was not a success. So I think Disney took a really, really big financial hit because of that. That ended up affecting the construction of California Adventure. And really, the whole idea of the park was a little bit strange. The idea of California Adventure was that you would be able to visit the best of what California has to offer. I think that's good for tourists and visitors like myself, but I also think that Disneyland in particular has a very large locals base. A lot of visitors come from California, and they don't really need to visit California because they live there. So California Adventure opened in 2001 and had some pretty mixed reviews right off the bat. And I'll say that that normally doesn't happen for a theme park. They might be annoyed with a couple things about a park, but they tend to be pretty pleased with it overall. California Adventure was just kind of a weird park. There wasn't that much to do when it first opened up, and it had some pretty out there attractions. Things like Superstar Limo, which is now Monsters, Inc. It was a slow-moving ride where you were going through Hollywood and you would see all the celebrities who were trendy at the time. This is regarded as probably one of the worst rides that Disney has ever built. In fact, it was such a poorly reviewed park that 6 years later, in 2007, Disney announced that they were going to spend $1 billion to redesign California Adventure and change the whole place. Now, in my opinion, California Adventure is a much better park with much more to do. You have things like the very wonderful Cars Land, Avengers Campus with all of its Marvel rides and all the characters. And I think the big lesson from California Adventure was that sometimes the concepts and ideas of a park just don't work out. Visiting California and California didn't work for people, and Disney realized that, and they changed it with $1 billion. And I think conceptually, Epic Universe is great. I love the idea of Celestial Park. I like the idea of different worlds. And what's really great is that this park is going to be built with expansion space. We have seen it in the models. You can see it in all the pictures. There are plots of land built into Epic Universe. So if people go to the park and feel like there's not enough to do now, in 5, 6, 7 years, there will be. They can add stuff to this already massive park. So if a park's concept doesn't work, that can be changed. And, it happens. Now, rides not working, that's also something that happens as well. And I'd say that's a lot more common, which brings us to our next big theme park opening, Universal Studios Florida. This park opened on June 7th, 1990. This was the first Universal park here in Florida. This kind of laid the steps for Epic Universe. It was a very big deal. So much so, one of my favorite little pieces of history is this newspaper ad that Disney put out welcoming Universal Studios to Central Florida. This kind of stuff does not happen anymore, and people were very, very excited to have a brand new theme park here in Orlando. It had a bit of a rough start, a rough couple years, I would say. The opening day of Universal Studios Florida is infamously bad. There were major power outages in the park. Some of the major attractions, like the big deal rides at the park, were closed for the majority of the day. So people were going to Universal Studios Florida on day one and didn't have access to Confrontation, Earthquake, the big one. They couldn't ride Jaws. All they had available to them, E.T. Adventure and the Fantastic World of Hanna-Barbera, two kind of family rides that were fun, but not the rides that people were coming to Universal Studios Florida for. Okay, maybe they were coming for E.T. because E.T.'s fantastic. So that caused the lines for all of these sort of smaller attractions in the park to be super duper long because the main big rides that were supposed to kind of bring people in were not functioning. As people were leaving the park, Universal was just giving tickets. They just said, hey, here's a ticket. Sorry this happened. Come back another day. No questions asked. You didn't have to line up to guest relations or anything like that. And even Jaws, a ride that was supposed to be a really big draw to Universal Studios, had tons of problems when it first opened up. The ride would break down all the time. So Universal actually closed Jaws a couple months after the park opened and completely redid the system and finally reopened the ride in 1993. So certain rides had to go through complete facelifts to be operating stably. And really, this was kind of the reputation of Universal Studios for the first couple years, is that you would go to this park and everything would break down. You know, there were a bunch of amazing and ambitious rides there, and they were difficult to maintain. You know, Universal was doing a lot of brand new stuff. And really, it wasn't until Back to the Future the ride opened up that the reputation of the park got a little better. This was a brand new, exciting ride in the park, and it ran smoothly. It didn't really break down very often because of the ride system. So having that ride there at the park really helped up the thoughts that people had on Universal Studios Florida. Now, what happened with USF, I think, is the most likely to repeat with Epic Universe. Epic Universe is a park that's going to open with a certain amount of rides, and there are going to be 2, 3, 4 rides that are like the must-dos, right? And I do think that some of those rides are probably going to break down for extended amounts of time, just because of all of the brand new ambitious technology. Specifically, a ride called Harry Potter and the Battle at the Ministry. You cannot have a Universal park without a brand new Harry Potter ride that breaks down all the time. And this is Epic Universe's Harry Potter ride. As these team member previews have been happening, I don't think anyone has actually gone on the Harry Potter ride. I went to the opening of Harry Potter and the Escape from Gringotts in 2014, and that was the very first day that the ride had opened up to guests. There were no soft openings, there were no previews for the ride, and that ride had a 7-hour wait. I remember that. And that wasn't because the ride was super exciting and there were a bazillion trillion people here to see it. I mean, that was true. That was true. But it was also kind of because the ride would break down all the time. It was like every 30 minutes the ride would break down and you'd sit there for like an hour. And also, they were running at a limited capacity. So a ride like Gringotts can have 10 or 12 ride vehicles on the track. On opening day, they were running with 4 RVs, which, as you would imagine, makes the line move very, very slow. It was the same thing with Hagrid's Motorbike Adventure. In 2019, that roller coaster had an infamous 600-minute wait, 10-hour wait throughout the park. And it was a mix of people being excited to ride the new ride, but also the ride was breaking down all the time. This was an incredibly ambitious roller coaster. It was doing a bunch of brand new things that roller coasters didn't typically do. These types of breakdowns are common. And I think this is also going to happen at Epic Universe. You know, there are going to be really big rides that people want to see that are going to be closed for multiple hours of the day. And it will get better over time as the park matures, but it is to be expected with a brand new park with ambitious new technology. But the biggest comparison of theme parks that I have seen Epic Universe have is a little place known as Tokyo DisneySea. Widely known as one of the best theme parks in the world, one of the best theme parks anywhere. Do I believe that? I kind of do. I really do. I got to spend 2 amazing days there. That place is the real deal, and it did not take me very long to realize that. But I visited DisneySea 24 years into its lifespan. When the park first opened up in 2001, do you know how many rides that park had? Honestly, about 6 or 7. And I mean this in the way of like big rides, okay? If you ever look up a ride list, it's gonna show you all these little small rides in like Ariel's Grotto and little things like that. I'm not counting those, I'm sorry. They are not, to me, big draws. They are not the reasons why people go to DisneySea. The same thing for Epic Universe as well. You know, there's going to be a list of attractions and things like that. I think there are certain things like Monsters and Mario Kart and Harry Potter that are going to bring people to Epic Universe. I don't think necessarily the carousel or the water play area, Astronomica, are the reasons people book a trip to Epic Universe. So I don't consider those big rides in that example. And even with DisneySea, I'm being generous when I talk about big rides, because in my list here, I've got Indiana Jones, which is a big ride, Aquatopia, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Journey to the Center of the Earth, Sinbad's Storybook Voyage, and I've added Jasmine's Flying Carpets, which is basically like a Dumbo ride, just to give DisneySea a little bit more. It took about 4 years for DisneySea to get its first roller coaster, Raging Spirits. That was in 2005. And then a year later, they got the Tower of Terror in 2006. And it wasn't until a couple years later, after that, they got Soarin', and then eventually last year, they got Fantasy Springs, which added 3 big rides to the park. When it boils down to it, Epic Universe is gonna have a lot of things to see and do. I think for most people, there are gonna be like 6 or 7 must-do experiences. So it's not gonna be like Disneyland or Magic Kingdom, or I guess, DisneySea really, that has, 20 different things to see and do. Those parks have had 20 plus years to get there. And to compare the theming of Epic Universe to Tokyo DisneySea, in my opinion, is a pretty bold statement. I think Epic Universe is going to be beautiful. I think it's going to be wonderful. I have no doubts about that. We have seen a bunch of amazing pictures of the park above the air in the sky with drones and things like that. I am so looking forward to seeing this park on the ground. I will say that DisneySea is a pretty beautiful park, okay? It is truly one of the most beautiful Disney parks out there, and the location plays a big part into it. There are certain parts of DisneySea where you can look out into the horizon of the park, and the body of water that's in the theme park feels like it's connected to the literal ocean that is right outside of the theme park. Like, it is such a beautiful park. The sense of scale is amazing. It is impressive. They have really, really done it. DisneySea just kind of like came like that. Okay? So until I really get to spend time there and really soak it in, it's gonna be really hard to compare the beauty of Epic Universe to the beauty of DisneySea, because I think based off everything that we know, it's 2 different types of experiences, 2 different types of beauties. And there's already things at Epic Universe that exist in other places, specifically Super Nintendo World. Everything that we've seen about Nintendo here suggests that it's pretty much identical to Universal Studios Japan, which is a place that we've been. I've been to Universal Japan. I've seen Super Nintendo World over there. It is pretty fantastic. It is awesome. It is so kinetic. There's so much motion. It is a really great theme park land, but I can say from experience that it is not the same as DisneySea. It is a different kind of beauty. So the jury's still out on that one there, but that is a very bold statement to make. I think the park is gonna have a lot of really beautiful spots. I think the Paris area of Epic Universe looks like it's gonna be wonderful. I'm excited to see Darkmoor. Nintendo is obviously exactly how it is in Japan, but based off of the things we've seen, I think there are some common complaints that people are gonna have. Stuff about like, such a theme park nerd thing. But like sightlines. Oh, sightlines. How come I can see the hotel from Paris or Dark Universe or whatever? Whatever, man. Like, like that is such a niche theme park geek thing to complain about that like the regular guest does not think about. And based off pictures that I've seen of people enjoying the park, is that the main area of Epic Universe, Celestial Park, is a little lacking in shade, which kind of comes as a surprise to me because they very famously said in the video, we're gonna put the park back in theme park. And I think that will happen, but it's gonna take a couple years. I always think of Volcano Bay. I remember going to that park when it first opened up and none of the trees were grown. You could really feel the heat in that park. And now if you visit Volcano Bay, the place is so lush. All the trees are so dense, it is beautiful. I think Celestial Park will get there, but it's gonna need some time. Give it 5 years from now, all those trees that they have planted are gonna grow in, and if they're gonna hopefully tower above the pathways and provide some natural shade, I think that'll be amazing. But again, that's 5 years from now. Universal is playing the long game with this park. So with that, when you visit Epic Universe for the first time after you've seen all of our reviews and all these impressions that people have had, I want you to think about 2 things. 1, have patience. This park is just a baby. It is just growing, and it's gonna be really awesome on day 1, but it still has to grow. And then 2, change the way you think about a full day experience at Epic Universe, right? Because a lot of people are just ride people. And I think if you just do the rides at Epic Universe, you are gonna blast through that park and it's gonna become a half-day experience. You need to take in the shows, you need to take in the atmosphere, you need to sit down and eat at one of the restaurants. All of that put together is going to create your perfect epic universe day. And that is how I think you need to handle the opening of this brand new park. You are going to have an amazing time, but you need to keep in mind that this is just the beginning, a brand new, exciting beginning for Universal and Orlando theme parks, right? We haven't had a new theme park in Orlando in 25 years. These are just the first steps to what is going to be an epic theme park experience. Oh my gosh. You like that? I just came up with that right now. Thank you guys for watching another Vincent Vision. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below. Tell me what you are most excited to see at Epic Universe. Thank you to all of my wonderful Patreons for supporting me and making this video possible. I look forward to creating some wonderful Epic Universe content that will hopefully be helpful to everyone who watches. But until then, I am going to get on out of here. Thank you guys for watching another Vincent Vision, and I will see you at the next one. Bye-bye.